is art, just a certain type of art.
Makes your streets look dirty and like you would want to come here like.
It's sort of, bringing a message to your children, say, this is, the area you live in.
It's not nice. It's not nice for visitors. It's not nice for tourists.
Sometimes it is intimidating if it is in your backyard, like.
So ones want to move on from the past. They're just sick of looking at them.
I just think it's because we're such a historical city and we've got a lot to tell people about.
It probably is particular to Northern Ireland.
I think you'll always have people who will come and want to make a statement.
I think you probably do have people marking their territory.
I would notice it, and it wouldn't be a very comfortable neighbourhood to be walking about it at about 6 o'clock at night.
It depends really what area you go into. They are being, to a certain extent, brainwashed and they believe in this kind of ideology and been told to do this thing, so they think that they're doing a thing that they've been told by older people and it's going to get them credit.
We could be generations away before we get any sort of sense that this will ever be over.
I think if you take a closer look, you do see graffiti everywhere.
Well, I suppose a lot of the graffiti that you would have seen here in Northern Ireland was politically motivated.
They don't know the meaning. Like, they might write IRA and they don't have a clue what it stands for. What children see is what children do. If they see somebody else writing IRA in the wall, they'll be all right, IRA. And they might hear about something, like from their parents or their brothers or something, or they might see about on TV, and they just perceive it as good and just paint it up there.
What you're doing really is send the message back into your own community. And many in your own community don't want to see that message either.
When we look at those slogan things, we know which area we enter in,
Sometimes that graffiti gets open. School children don't even know what it means. Because we have never really taken sectarianism seriously. Our schools are segregated, there's no question about that, and it's something we've got to learn to live with and learn to live through, while at the same time recognising that we're actually not dealing with it.
This generation doesn't want the younger generation growing up the way that we grew up, with the political and the whole sectarian thing.
We are divided. 98% of our social housing is segregated.
You start off as a tagger, basically writing your name, and you're just writing your name in script or in different styles, and it's just very simple, just a black can, and you take it to the streets. And the bottom level is called a toy. So when you first start off, you're pretty much a toy, which means you don't know anything and you don't know how to write your name on the walls and you're just a toy. So you try to get out of the toy phase as soon as possible, and then get to the piecer stage where you get a little bit more respect by other artists,
When you're looking up at the lovely stone and the structure, and then you see all these big letters stamping out, that's what takes your eye.
The difficulty we've had whenever a piece of graffiti goes up, that people are afraid to speak out against it in case they're attacked.
People don't realise the damage that they do as well when they use graffiti, especially on old stone and ancient monuments and old buildings, how difficult it is to get that cleared off.
It's the largest state-owned monument in Northern Ireland, and it must be protected and preserved for future generations.
So we need to take a serious look at the graffiti, what's on walls, and how we should manage what goes on walls.
If you see a rifle and things like that, yes, you feel threatened. You don't want to be driving past that area.
I feel it's dragging up the past all the time. And when you look at a mural, you know, and a British soldier with a sledgehammer banging on a door, I don't think, to me that's just reaping up all the time. And many of the young people don't know about what happened in the early Troubles. And I just feel it's a reminder daily.
Let's be very clear as to why the murals went open in the first place. That was because people needed to mark their territory, because people were feeling threatened, people feeling that people were coming in to take away from them what they felt that they owned. So murals went up.
If you define the past as the last 40 years or the last 100, that's not. There's thousands of years. And I think in Irish culture, it goes back 4,000 years. There's stuff that predates the pyramids.
I just started photographing the murals in 1981 when the Republicans for the first time started painting murals in a big way. They hadn't really before that, and they kept painting, so I kept photographing, and then I realised, wait a minute, the Loyalists have been painting since 1908, maybe I should photograph their murals too. There has been a lot of change in recent years, and that's been more pronounced on the Republican side than on the Loyalist side. When the Republicans began painting murals, they painted on a broad range of themes, you know, everything from armed struggle to history, mythology, international themes, etc. The Loyalists were more confined from the mid-80s. They basically painted men with hoods and guns. So when the peace process came along, the Republicans had a relatively easy ability to change and just remove the guns and paint all the other things that they'd been painting all along. And that's why you get murals like this one behind. The Loyalists had a bigger problem in that if they took the guns out of the murals, there wasn't much left for them to paint.
This estate, when I came to live in it 27 years ago with my two children, it didn't have a very good image. We did some consultation with the UVF. It took 2 years of talks. It was quite difficult, and it wasn't just local people that we had to talk to, you know, it went a bit further afield than that because we had to get permission to remove them. I remember the day we were taking down the murals and the workmen were there, and we had to have somebody in the background from the paramilitary organisation just to let people know that it was okay. She didn't mind it so much when the UVF memorial mural when our children were young, but then as they grew up and started to go out to work and make friends with different people from different communities, that they were embarrassed to bring them home. They were the first people to give us a letter of support.
The Unionist mural tradition is the oldest continuous mural tradition in the world, which most people in the world wouldn't know. It was built around the 12th of July and the celebration of King Billy's victory at the Battle of the Boyne. It moved away from that. It got stuck in the mid-80s into painting hooded men, advertisements for loyalist paramilitary groups, and it's had the hardest time in recent years breaking away from that. Basically, the loyalist commanders took control of the wall in '86, and they're not particularly happy to give up that control to the rest of the community to say, you know, paint whatever you want there on the wall, and that's what the struggle is at the moment. One of the things that concerns me about on the Unionist side is that when you talk about history, it really comes down to the history of war, and you know, for the most part, 2 wars, the Boyne and the Somme. And there's so much other history that needs to be explored. I mean, for example, I think only once have I ever seen a mural about the plantations, and yet that's so formative. And you know, without the plantations, there would have been no unionism here. And so, like, why aren't they exploring that? Why aren't they painting that? I just think that there's such a shame that the history has got focused on just a couple of narrow things and doesn't just open its eyes and look at all the other possibilities that there are there to paint.
It's about working and exploring the topics that are relevant in the area and not diluting or re-imaging it, because again, I think you can upset people doing that. And the idea is take on board people's ideas and feelings, but also definitely include things that are relevant, because again, it's about history. You have to teach history to people, and especially a younger generation, because to actually get to re-image this area and lose some of the political murals would mean that people forget what they're about, and what has been important historically.
Part of the challenge for unionism is to say, okay, now we've got the freedom to paint what we want. What do we want to paint? And that is a difficult question.
My name's Donald Doherty. I work for Urban Visuals, which is a graffiti-based street art company. This is basically a showcase graffiti event. Some of the top players from New York, London, all over Ireland. The first ever event of this kind in the city. And we just brought them here together to sort of showcase what graffiti is about and sort of get rid of that negative stigma that's attached to the word graffiti itself even. As we all know, we have a strong sort of heritage of muralism and sort of those massive pieces of art that people have done throughout the years, but they've always been a sort of political agenda behind them, or telling a story of civil rights or stuff like that. But this is just to sort of show that there's other ways you can go about doing it.
Graffiti is really what got me into being able to express myself on a bigger scale. There wasn't a school for graffiti, it's a street art form, and that's where you learn it. You learn it from people who pass it down to you, the tips and tricks on how to do certain things, and also the style and what you can tag on or not tag on.
It's a safe place to come and make expression. We all know that expression is one of the things that we're trying to focus on. I think we've moved a long way from graffiti artists being vigilantes, art in the dead of night, defacing or vandalising various aspects of or parts of the council property. And I think we've come a long way, as you see, to a more organised form of street art, which is actually focusing on something that is more aesthetically and visually pleasing, as opposed to just making a raw statement.
Like with graffiti, it taught me how to actually go and do something I was told not to do. No, you can't do that. Well, in this culture, you learn you can. You can actually get over obstacles from learning and knowing that it's actually not a bad thing that they say it is. It's actually positive, and it unites people. It brings people together from all different backgrounds, cultures and that. It's creating something, but creating something to inspire people to think bigger. So even these young kids here, looking at what we do, might want to go, right, okay, we can do bigger than that.
That has a ripple effect. And hopefully in years to come that will stay with them and they'll have a sense of pride in their community.
We don't want to take it on the politics. We don't want to just like gunmen murals. We want to sort of avoid that, and we just want to keep it neutral for both sides of the community.
Well, that's a perfect example of good graffiti behind us, and that's what I mean when I say I see graffiti as positive. That graffiti's there now about 6 years, and as you can see, it hasn't been touched. It hasn't lost its colour. It's still as inviting as ever, and we're very proud of it.
This is they connect one side of the glen to the other side of the glen.
Wall was covered in moss and there was dog's dirt all over the footpath and all. It's stinking.
Doesn't feel as dirty walking through it, so it feels better walking through it.
It's really about occupying the space and allowing people from the local area to sort of showcase things that are important to them.
It shows a level of maturity, in fact, in the young people today. One that maybe we tend to overlook, and it's only when you sit down with young groups of people and listen to them that you realise that they could maybe teach us a thing or two.
97% of people said that graffiti in their area was something that they didn't want. We very much have a firefighting response to it. If graffiti goes up, we'll take it down. If it goes up again, we'll take it down.
Again, it's about the environment you live in and feeling good about where you live. And I suppose if you look around here now, it's murals that's on the walls. There's no curbs painted, there's no flags hardly, compared to what there was years ago. So again, it's back to changing that mindset of people.
To me, the trick is to get rid of the offensive part of the murals, in as far as they're offensive, and continue to paint what is politically important to people. So it's not about getting rid of the murals, it's not about getting rid of the politics on the murals, but it's about asking people, what is it that you want? What is your vision? What is your fear? Where do you want to go? What do you want for your kids? Can you paint all that on the wall?
We have two different cultures working alongside one another here, and really we don't understand the other's culture. People from the Nationalist Catholic community, in my view, don't understand loss that Protestants have experienced or are experiencing according to them, and that is the loss of Stormont, the loss of local councils, the loss of right to parade, the loss of putting up a flag 365 days a year, the loss of the RUC, the UDR, the B specials, all of that, the Queen's picture going out of many buildings, all of that is seen by Protestants as a loss. And Catholics are going, what's that all about? Sure, is it only but right that all those things we should be treating this as equals and not offend anybody by being dominated by one or the other side? And they don't understand the Protestant loss, and then Protestants don't understand why Catholics don't understand that loss. So we're wondering, walking about in a wonderment of what's going on the other side, with not really understanding each other.
You've got to reflect the views of the people and how they see their identity, and explore that and have that conversation with local people about it, how they see themselves, and it's important to sort of portray that in the murals that you do, whichever community you're in.
A bigger slogan they go on a wall on the Bogside was, "You're now entering free dairy." And I think if people weren't given that freedom, they write that on a wall, then it would never become such an iconic symbol throughout the world.
A lot of people, when they talk about the past, they talk about a political past, but yeah, that's politics. But there's other things. There's sport. There's art. There's Gaelic culture. So I think for me, it's exploring that, and then getting people to explore that to see what's fascinating about it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you forget. You get disconnected to the place where you live in.
I think history is important because it tells the people what has happened, and you have to learn from what has happened in the past, as long as you can move on and not make the same mistakes again. It is important for the graffiti to be there, or some form of that message to be there, but not make the same mistake again.
I love Nelson Drive now. I love living here. There's great community spirit, and it's completely transformed since we removed the sectarian and paramilitary murals and graffiti. It's really made the estate a more welcoming place, and now there's actually a waiting list for people wanting to live in this estate, which is really a big turnaround.
You know, it's giving young people that opportunity and that expression. They put their views or put their statement on a wall in their local community, so when they grow up in 4, 5, 10 years time, that they can turn around and say, oh look, that was me, I'd done that there, it was a positive thing, positive impact I made in making this community look respectable, a place that you'd like to live on, work on, and have a family on.
Let's come from behind the walls. Let's try to put the hands of friendship across the whole city to each other and show people that we're no longer a threat to them. We're a city here that's growing in tourism, and we want tourism to come back, and we're standing on the best tourism item that we have, and that's our walls. So why would you want to deface them if we're going to be seeing that it could bring work here? We could bring more and more tourists here that'll fill our hotels, and that's what we're looking for. And when we do that, it means that our people can work in those hotels, and our people can profit from those hotels, because that money then goes back into our community. So why would you want to destroy it?
We're very fortunate that the Northern Ireland Tourist Board and the Minister Arlene Foster came here at the end of last year, and she had a lighting strategy when the Northern Ireland Tourist Board kindly gave 1.7 million quid, and as a result now the walls and all of the key buildings in and around the walls have been lit up at night. So we're very fortunate, and I believe that will go a long way in managing and stopping any graffiti writing on the walls.
At the start, when I was younger, I used to go on and see like the Protestant murals and feel a bit intimidated, but once we started working across community, and it just sort of opened our eyes that there's no difference between us. Maybe about religion, boundary, or different colours, different flags, but at the end of the day we're one people.
Live in the future, think of tomorrow. What kills people is not adversity. What kills people's spirit is believing that every tomorrow is going to be just like yesterday. And as long as people believe that their tomorrows can be different, as long as they have something to look forward to when they get up in the morning, they can overcome any adversity. They can deal with any setback. That is what I want for you. Finish the job.